So, Dr. Umar Johnson on the Bittersweet Podcast, Part 3, coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Common Sense, Logic, and Reason. As always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So, and continuing with Part 3 of Dr. Umar Johnson interview on the Bittersweet Podcast. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get to it.
In other words, Queen, I can tolerate us getting the funding to some extent, especially our women, right?
Yeah.
But what is the exit date? What is the freedom date? What is the emancipation date? Can you tell me where and when are you projecting to cut off the funding from the Caucasian and start funding yourself?
The Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863 here in the United States of America. So here we are emancipated, and today there's absolutely no oppression in America. Any black person who's crying about being oppressed is purely a mental thing. It's not physically. Black folks are basically mentally enslaved and mentally handicapped in America, but most certainly not physically. The reason why black folks are still doing this nonsense is because, as I've always talked about, the big lie narrative. They're told from the time that they're born, they're told big enough, long enough, and loud enough that America is a racist country. And by the time they become an adult, they've been so indoctrinated and they believe it, even though they have no real evidence to prove it. So any cries of oppression in the United States of America is basically nonsense that's internal to blacks, but there's no external forces that are oppressing blacks in America. And I'm willing to believe that the thing is the same in Australia. But when he says Caucasian funding, what does he mean by Caucasian funding? Does he mean tax dollars? Well, if black people are paying taxes, then it's not white funding. That's everybody's funding, because we all spend our tax dollars. So it's not it's not white funding. It's funding from government. It's government funding. The government is neither white nor black. And as I say here, in the United States of America, we participate fully in government from the highest to the lowest. So black folks are participating in it, and we all spend money in it, pay taxes from the highest to the lowest. So it is not white funding. Okay? Now, with that being said, though, there's no problem with taking donations from a white person for something. I'm pretty sure there have been white folks who donated to the FDMG. Did he send the money back? Or he probably wouldn't even know. But there's no taking money of donations from white folks. It means absolutely nothing. It means no more than taking money donations from blacks or any other race of people. If they're willing to take their hard-earned money and donate it to a cause, then what's the issue? Again, he's just another means of him and these race hustlers making race out of everything, or making race out of something that's not race.
Well, I think you can. I think if you take it for seed funding to build a business, let's talk about this podcast and this studio. I think to build it and to grow a community at the beginning, it's necessary because we don't have the resources. And then after some time where you've built an established brand or you've built you've built something, you can then start to ask people actually create a business that's running on its own. Or having people or have people want to donate towards the business or put money into it.
I agree with the host here, but that's most people. That's not just blacks. Most people, taking money. White folks don't just have all this money. The average white person doesn't just have all this money just lying around to start all these business ventures. So if a white person receives money from another white person, that's normal. Well, again, a white person getting funding from another white person is no different than a black person getting funding from another white person. It's not like if a white person donates to a cause, they have this great power or influence over it, as he claimed. Because as I say, if a white person donated to FDMG through his cashed app to him, does that mean that white person has any more or less say so over the project than any of the black person who donate? No, that's ignoramus. The narrative that he's trying to spin here, or that he tries to spin, is stupid. But like I say, what the host said is correct, but that's everybody. Black folks not the only one receiving seed money for startups. White folks do as well.
I can agree with your strategy, but when you say it's necessary,
Yes, I think it's
I
necessary.
would push back to some extent. You know why? I'm willing to bet that Australian Africans, and I'm speaking collectively of everyone, from the Ethiopians to the South Sudanese and everyone in between, I'm sure they're buying Christmas gifts. I'm sure they're going to musical concerts. I'm sure they're going to nightclubs. I'm sure they're smoking marijuana and drinking. I'm sure they're buying Nikes and Christian Dior and Gucci and Louis Vuitton. I'm sure they're driving Mercedes and BMWs. So don't tell me it's necessary to take government funding, because if you have money to buy the things you want, you certainly have money to fund the things you need.
Now, I do agree with Dr. Umar here. One of the very rare times I agree with him. Yeah, Black people we have this issue of buying what we want and then turn around and begging for what we need. That's basically a trait of Blacks, but that's only the ghetto ratchet Blacks do. That's not really a Black thing. It's a ghetto Black thing. It's basically the ghetto mentality. When I say the ghetto mentality, when I've talked about the ghetto mentality, that's the ghetto mentality. Again, that childlike mentality that put heavy emphasis on living for the day, quick gratification with very little emphasis on delaying gratification so that you can have better in the future. That's the mentality that I'm talking about. But this is a mentality thing, not a skin color thing. Blacks weren't always that way, and that mentality only started happening after the destruction of the Black family in the 1960s, the turbulent 60s. But, to Australia though, if buying all of this stuff, if they're able to buy all of this stuff, then how are they being oppressed though? Like, where is the oppression in? Where are the oppressed people in this world, the truly oppressed people in this world that has the option to buy all these things and have access to all these forms of entertainment? They don't. Really, truly oppressed people don't have that because they're oppressed. And as far as if these people are paying taxes, it's their money. So if they receive money from the government, just as much as their money as is a white person's money. So that's a stupid argument that Dr. Umar Johnson. Now this dude will sell this narrative of separation to the end, especially when it's not needed. And that's really the problem with Black folks, this type of nonsense. That's why, I talk about Dr. Umar Johnson, because he is one of the biggest detriments of Black people, because every time he pushes this separation and all this, he's pushing nothing but the Black victimhood, and the Black victimhood is basically the number one problem facing Blacks in America. Get rid of the Black victimhood and Blacks will be just as prosperous as any other group. But it's that Black victimhood that's keeping Black folks down.
Facts. What if we're not doing both? I don't think there are people that are going clubbing. There can be people that are going clubbing there can be people that are not going clubbing and putting money towards their passion instead, but don't have enough funds to do that.
I'm sure.
Yes.
But I'm speaking as a community.
As a community.
Because we should act as a community.
And listen to...
Basically, this is more of that community BS that you often hear from these race hustlers. Again, community is just yet another buzzword that race hustlers use to get Black folks into that mindless zombie state that Black folks often get into whenever they hear the word race. They use this as a drug to keep Black folks addicted. Now, I will say this, that I do agree with the collective community is legit to a certain extent, but it has its limits though. And a community is built by individuals. It's built by a bunch of individuals living their individual lives, and through their individual lives, they contribute to the community. It's not built by a hive mind, okay? So individuals basically living their individual lives. I make individual decisions in my daily, for me, in my life, in my family on a daily basis. Other people do the same, okay? It's not a collective. When I make a decision, it's not a collective. I make this personal decision for me and my family. Other people do the same. I don't have any say-so in their decision. They don't have a say-so in my decisions, to a certain extent. But people, now I agree that we should have a certain level of accountability when it comes out to the community, and it should be held accountable by the community. But this is mostly mostly when it comes down to decency, morality and a code of conduct, a code of behavior. I agree that the community should hold others to a certain code of conduct. But like I say again, there is no Borg society, and there's never been a Borg society among human beings. And even in the small collective groups, people still play their own individual part. But as societies get bigger, you have less of a need of a community. And I mean, that's most certainly what we see in first world countries. Anyway, y'all, so this is my end of this, my breakdown of this interview, because if you listen to the rest of it, Dr. Umar Johnson pretty much says the same nonsense. And you can see, again, proving the point that he carefully chooses who he sits down to have an interview, because he's not going to interview with anybody. He's not going to interview with anyone who's going to check him. And I've seen him do so many of these interviews where the host just sit back and let him spew all this nonsense and never check him on it. And that's why he gets to spew it. And then he does also the same animation with these big eyes and all this animation and all this stuff like that to try to sell the nonsense. But it's not true. Dr. Umar Johnson really truly is an idiot. And like I said, this is my end of covering this pretty much interview, because it's not going to be much different. It's going to be me doing probably 4 or 5 more videos critiquing the same nonsense. Like I said, but anyway, that's my 2 cents on this. Dr. Umar Johnson really truly is an idiot. And based on the words that's coming out of his mouth. And as always, y'all, until next time.